Hi, my name is Genevieve White, and I'm the school psychologist at the Summit School. And we were asked to present to you a little bit about supporting families and children during this time of COVID-19. So I am a mother of two. I have a 3-year-old, almost 4-year-old daughter, and I have an 8-month-old son. And I'm working from home, and my husband is working from home. So we are juggling, the same thing that you all are juggling as well. And this is my colleague, Dr. Leslie Eget.
Hi, I too am a mother of two children. I have a 4th grader and a 5th grader who are doing e-learning at home through Anne Arundel County Public Schools. So I'm juggling that with working full time while my husband is out of the home working. I am working as the Director of Program Supports at the Summit School and am a school psychologist by training. And I met Mrs. White a long time ago working as a school psychologist. So we've known each other for a while, and we're excited to share some things that we've learned through the National Association of School Psychologists, as well as give you some tips on how we are managing our busy lives here at home as well.
So I'm going to share my screen with you so that you guys will be able to see the PowerPoint.
Right, and I wanted to mention too, we're pre-recording this because as you can imagine, having children at home, we're not sure how things would go in a live format. So we're pre-recording to hope that, with the hopes that we don't have any disruptions throughout this thing. So, but we will be there live with you on Wednesday for the parent coffee.
Okay. So Leslie, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. How about now?
It's coming. There it is.
Okay. Okay, so we wanted to talk a little bit about what behavior we can expect in children. Children's emotions and reactions are going to vary depending on age and potential pre-existing conditions during this time of crisis. Really young children before elementary school are going to cycle through emotions pretty quickly. They're going to want to talk about it, and then they're going to want to get back to playing, and then they may want to talk about it again. So we want to be cautious of that in really young children. And then we'll talk a little bit later on about how you can talk about it with a little bit older kids and how they kind of process this information. Emotions can manifest themselves really differently in children than they can adults, whereas adults recognize when they're feeling anxious or depressed or nervous. Children can often not really recognize what those feelings are, so it can manifest itself with some anger, aggression, withdrawal. We can see some regression in behavior. So we want to expect definitely a change in behavior in our children. We do recommend that you seek professional help if your child shows an ongoing pattern of significant behavior challenges, such as significant aggression, self-harm, or significant regression in skills, significant sleep regression, especially if they have a pre-existing condition. This could be a pre-existing mental health condition, some instability in family life, or traumatic experiences in the past. If they have these pre-existing conditions and the behavior that you're seeing is pretty significant, definitely recommend seeking professional help. But we do expect that we're going to see some changes in behavior in our children. Try and show some empathy and patience during this time. I know it can be very frustrating because it's not behavior that you're used to seeing in your child. So show some empathy and patience, and then you do set some limits when needed, so you don't want the behavior to escalate. But I know this is a very challenging time for everyone, especially when you're juggling and working from home and trying to manage everything. And that's one of the hardest things, but we do expect a lot of changes in behavior in our kids. One of the biggest things that we can do is we can be a role model for our kids. Our children mimic us more than they listen to us. And so one of the things we can do is taking some time for some self-care and managing your own worry and anxiety. Seek help if you have seeked help before in the past for anxiety, or maybe you feel like you need to now because your anxiety has escalated. Children can pick up on changes in behavior in adults really quickly, and this can cause them a lot of worry and confusion. So make sure we're managing our own worry and our own anxiety ourselves. And then also showing them that routines and schedules, talking about our feelings and getting enough sleep, all of these things are just as important to us as it is to them. Another thing you can do is create a crisis plan for your family in case something happens with a loved one or anyone that you're close to, just so you know what you can do and what you and your family are going to do. Have access to therapists or crisis hotlines, family members to virtually support you. So this is our crisis plan in case anything happens, and that will just help give you kind of a sense of calm if something does happen, that you're prepared. So identifying some projects that may help others could definitely help your children feel like they have some sense of control. So writing letters, sending positive messages over social media, anything that you can do to help the child feel that they are doing something good and they have some control over the situation, because it's very difficult, especially when we don't know if there's we can't see the end in sight. So helping them have that little sense of control may help a lot with calming their worry. Offering lots of love and affection to all age groups, especially our younger ones who, don't have that much information about what's going on. They can be very confused about it. So just offering them love, affection every day, that will really help. And then establishing and maintaining a daily routine. And Leslie will talk a little bit about this because we are very well aware that establishing a routine right now is very challenging because we're balancing our work schedules that are consistently changing every day. And we're also balancing our kids' work schedules, especially if you're doing some online learning with them. So Leslie will talk a little bit about some things that we've developed at the Summit School to help some of our children, and also what we've done to help with helping our children learn in our home. So being aware of how you talk about COVID to your children and around your children, early, like I said before, young children will kind of cycle through whether they want to talk about it and whether they're going to go back to playing. Elementary age children, early elementary, we want to provide them with just brief, simple information that balances the COVID facts and provides appropriate reassurances that adults are doing everything they can to help you stay safe. If you do get sick, we are going to take care of you and we're going to make sure you're okay. So appropriate reassurances and very simple, brief facts. When it gets a little bit to older elementary and younger middle school, they're going to be a little bit more vocal about asking questions about whether they're safe, helping and discussing with them some of the efforts that our community leaders and state leaders are doing to keep everyone safe and healthy, what they can do to prevent the spread of germs. So you're going to have a little bit more conversation with them about that. And then upper, middle, and high school, you can really discuss it more in depth and involve them in family planning and the current status of everything that's going on, scheduling for your family. You can involve them a little bit more. We always want you to be truthful with your kids, but just be aware of how much information you're providing the younger kids. You don't want to provide them unnecessary information, but you definitely want to provide them with truthful information to help them process what's going on. And then focus on the positive, celebrate the time you're having with family and make it as fun as possible. I wanted to talk a little bit about deep breathing and managing worry. Practicing deep breathing and mindfulness with yourself and with your children can be really helpful. Sometimes we go through the day when we're stressed and we take a lot of little tiny breaths. And then at the end of the day, our whole body is tense and we don't even realize how stressed we were. So this is a really good practice to just help calm our stress response. And mindfulness, the whole point of mindfulness is that if we're not thinking about the past and we're not thinking about the future, then how can we be anxious or how can we be worried? So it's really taking time and focusing on the present and helping your mind not think about anything at the moment. And this really helps us calm ourselves. If your child is more prone to worrying and you feel like they're, really talking about their worries and what they're anxious about all day, you can maybe designate some time to talk about the worries, create worry jars, have your child write down their worries in the beginning of the day, put them in the worry jar, say that you're going to hold on to them all day, and then at this time we can talk about them. It just kind of gives them a visual and idea that, all day they don't have to talk about it. They can talk about it. We want to encourage them to talk about it, but maybe they don't need to think about it all day. So that's just an idea that you can do if you feel like your child is more prone to worry. And then practicing positive self-talk. This is good for a time of crisis, but also good anytime. Talking to your child about, we're going to get through this. I am brave. I have adults in my life that support and care for me. I practice this with my daughter who's 3 in the mirror every night. We talk about, I am brave. I can do this. And sometimes I think it's not sinking in, but then weeks later she'll come out with a statement and says, I can do this, Mom, don't worry, I'm brave. So it does sink in, and practicing that positive self-talk is really helpful. Allowing children to express their feelings and just be a really good listener. They're going to have a lot of questions. They're going to be very confused about everything. So allow them to express themselves, and always listen to what they're saying. And then I talked a little bit about helping your child feel more in control. A better sense of control can lessen those feelings of anxiety. Give them jobs to do, things that they find helpful or things that they feel that they can do to help the greater good. This is just an example of a breathing board I made. I think breathing boards are very helpful. I think taking deep breaths is really helpful. I think sometimes that we say take deep breaths so much that it can often lose its meaning, but it is one of the most important things we can do to calm ourselves, so that we're not taking short breaths all day and then we feel really tense at the end of the day. So having this visual about breathing in, holding it, breathing out, and holding it, and doing this for children. Here are some mindfulness apps that I really love. I love Headspace, Calm, Breathe Kids, Smiling Mind, Go Noodle has a lot of good games for kids, and Mind Shift. Again, these are helpful for adults and kids, and it helps us really think about the present and just take a break from all the worry that sometimes consumes us throughout the day. So now Leslie is going to talk a little bit about setting your child up for success.
Sure. Jen, can you hear me?
I can, yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I think very importantly, I think we want to try to stick to the routine that the kids know already. So while they were in school, they probably had a set bedtime, they probably had a set wake time, they probably got breakfast in the morning. So I would think that you would want to keep that that same schedule for them. When they're staying up late, then they're kind of groggy and cranky in the morning. They may not want to get going with their schoolwork. So if we can make their homeschool environment much like what they were used to, they're going to be able to adjust to that a lot better. I know that sometimes I feel like, oh, they can stay up a couple, 15 extra minutes, but even 15 minutes, 30 minutes can really make things very different for them the next day. My advice is to restrict screen time 30 minutes before they go to sleep, because when they're having access to those screens and they're focused in on all of the visuals and the gaming, it just really takes the brain some time to calm down so the way they can get in a state where they're relaxed enough to fall asleep. I would make sure that they get up at the same time every day so that they can have a nice breakfast. They can kind of wake themselves up for the day and be ready to learn whenever school starts for them. A lot of, the schools are doing so many different things. I know Anne Arundel County now is posting all of the assignments for the week that are due the following Sunday, with some Google Meets sprinkled in there. But the kids are required to kind of keep up with the work during the week. So there is quite a bit to do. So you want to make sure that you're keeping them on top of those activities and those assignments. Like I said, to make sure they have a healthy breakfast. And this is just a schedule that I set for my kids based on my working from home schedule. Because what I notice with them is if they have a schedule that they can mark off that they've completed it, they're more likely to go about their day. I'm actually kind of amazed because sometimes I'll forget about it and they'll be like, Mom, you're supposed to be meeting with me. And I'm like, oh, right. So it's a good check for me too. And just they are comfortable knowing that they have time with me during the day. For my work schedule between 12 and 1, that's a break for everybody at my school. So I'm able to devote that time to them if they need help. So we have an 8:30 breakfast time. I make sure they check their own Google Classrooms at 8:55 so that they can kind of see what their day looks like. And then they have classwork and meets anytime between 9 and 11. And what I do for them is I expect them to go through their assignments and try to do things independently first. Because I'm in the middle of working, I can't really help them in that time. So, you know, and then obviously a motivator for my boys is the video games. They do like to do that. So I do allow them, once they finish their work to the best that they can, then they can have some video game time. I also build a break of 15 minutes that they play with the dog. So they're to get outside and kind of get some movement. You know, even at school, kids really need those movement breaks to help them focus, because 2 hours of sitting in front of a screen doing schoolwork is a lot. So make sure you let your kids get up and walk around. And obviously, if it's nice out, best to get outside, get some fresh air, and then they'll be more apt to come back, sit down, and get finished with their work. After that, they have some free time until they have lunch at 11:30. And then, like I said, my break is between 12 and 1. So because I have the two of them, they each get 30 minutes with me. So if there's any questions that they had on the work that they had that morning, then I can help clarify that with them or give them a little bit more support, because they really need it. And what I found too is that sometimes that support has to carry over to the evening, because a lot of the work that they've been getting is really not stuff that they can do independently. It does require some adult support. I'm not sure if you're finding that as a parent, but I certainly feel that they need a lot more support than what they can do on their own. And then again, they can always do free time and things like that once their work is finished from 1 to 2 o'clock. And then they have free time, and they need to be outside. You need to get outside. They need to run around and be kids, so that they're not just sitting in front of the screens all day. So I've developed quite a few different schedules for different families based on their situations. And you saw the one from my own children. This is a weekly schedule for a child who he's kind of intermediate, like 4th grade-ish. And this is his schedule for the week, because he has 2 working parents. So he is pretty independent with trying to follow his schedule. Now, he has a lot of support from the school that he goes to with Google Meet classes daily. So this is a schedule of where he needs to be at certain times of the day. And then he's able to fill in the spots if he has other things that are enrichment, or maybe he's doing a gym class for a gym that's doing online classes and things like that. So he can fill that in, but this is his school schedule that we developed. This is another schedule, and this is for a younger child that we have, and we follow an A-Day, B-Day schedule at Summit. So we're doing 2 classes on A-Day and then 3 classes on B-Day. So it just kind of goes through the expectations of what the behavior should look like during his online learning. He needs to be ready to learn. We want him to eat breakfast before class. What we found early on is that some kids were coming to class, eating their breakfast, covered in blankets, laying in their bed, and what we found is they really weren't ready to learn. So we've kind of honed in on that a little bit, and now we want kids to be sitting at a desk. We want them to have eaten their breakfast already, and we want them to have watched their agenda video before coming to class, so that they kind of know what their day is going to look like for each class that they have. Okay. So some helpful hints on some things that I've learned is, for me, it's best to organize my day the night before. You know, every day could look very different depending on what your work schedule is or your child's schedule. So if you plan the night before, it makes the next day go much easier. Use a whiteboard so you can change it day by day. Make sure you're building in those times for lunch, play, rest, and movement breaks. The better that you can schedule yourself, the more sense of routine your child will have. So kids, especially kids with anxiety, do best when they have a set schedule or a set routine. They know what's to come, so they don't have to worry, and they don't have to fear the unexpected, because they know what's going to happen. I've found that most schools are using an A-Day, B-Day type of schedule, which is really, honestly, all the kids can handle. I've heard some parents wanting full day schedules of all of their classes all day long. And really, that is just not the best practice for kids and being in front of a computer screen all day. I feel like it could be very, very overwhelming, because everybody's family situation is very different. So I feel like schools are trying to balance what is best for everyone. So just be mindful of that whenever you're interacting with the teachers and things like that, that they really are trying to do what's best for everybody. And certainly if you want more enrichment for your child, reach out to the teacher. I'm sure they'd be happy to offer that. And then on the other hand, if you're feeling very overwhelmed, reach out to the teacher and let them know, because I think schools are being very flexible with what's going on. And I know Anne Arundel, I believe, they have one graded assignment per class each week. So just know that, not all of the assignments are important, but you want to make sure that they're doing at least that one graded assignment so that they can be considered present. Sorry, Mrs. White, can you go back?
Yep.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about, becoming really familiar with the platform that your child's school is using. I know a lot of school systems are using Google as their platform. I believe Calvert is using Schoology. And then we have kids at the Summit School that are using the platform Seesaw. So there are several platforms out there. And if you get to know that particular platform, you'll be much better able to support your child. Another thing that I found to be very helpful is to create an inviting and productive workspace for your child. Like I said, we don't want them laying in bed with their stuffed animals, very cute in the beginning when all the kids were bringing their dogs to class and everybody was saying hi to the animals. But really, we do need to focus that small window of opportunity to teach skills. We don't want kids to have a lot of regression, because that's certainly something that we're all fearing for the kids, that they're not in school full day. They're only getting a few hours of instruction, and there's a lot going on. So we just really want that time with the teacher to be as productive as possible. So you want your child to sit at a table or a desk. It's very important. Nowhere that's too comfortable. You should have supplies within their space, like paper, pencil, colored pencils, calculator, any manipulatives that your child might need. Make sure the space is clear of distractions. You don't want the television on. You don't want their toys, their favorite toys around, or their cell phone where they could be texting their friends in the middle of class. And then hang visual supports. So if your child would benefit from a calendar, have their workspace have a calendar. If they love science or they love math, put things that are of interest to them so that it can almost be like their personal office. Another thing that I've found to be very helpful, and this ties into executive skills, to-do lists are really great because they involve all of those things that we look at when we're trying to teach executive functioning skills, like planning, task monitoring, goal setting, task completion, and behavior regulation, for example. So for the to-do list, very simple. They would just write down what they need to accomplish for the day, and there's a little box that they could check it off once they're done. And then they're planning ahead. If I have free time, this is what I'd like to do. And they're doing some goal setting. If I finish my to-do items with no behaviors, I can earn this type of reward, and they can fill that in. So all of that is really going to help them throughout their day to maintain being on task, to have their behavior regulated and under control, completing their tasks, and then being able to reward themselves if they've accomplished those things.
You can always pull in family members virtually to support your children during this time for maybe the goal setting or the behavior regulation, and say, okay, we can check in with our grandmother or grandfather, and let them know how you're doing at the end of the day as a virtual check-in, and get them on board, because we know it's really challenging to be a parent and a teacher. So just pulling in other people that can reward your child for doing what they're doing may just be that extra thing that the child needs to follow along and do what they're supposed to do.
Absolutely. And it gives them something to be proud about too.
Exactly. Yeah. So here's a list of resources, and during the parent coffee, we can add these resources to the chat box so that you're able to click on them and access the resources during the actual presentation. So this is, I hope that you guys have found this helpful. I'll get out of our presentation at this point and we can go back to the Google Meet. So like I said, we'll put all of the resources into the Google chat box so you can click on the links and access. There's a plethora of resources out there. I think the biggest thing is try and access resources from like the National Association of School Psychologists, from the CDC, and try to avoid more social media access to resources. We always want to stay up to date on the most current and accurate information. So access those resources as much as possible. And then we will be available for any questions after. Thanks so much for joining us.